Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's session where we are going to be talking about unlocking the power of AI, and it's a collaboration between Zindi and IBM. So this collaboration was initiated in order to enable our community to have digital skills, skills like professional skills, job skills, AI fundamentals, data fundamentals. And we have been running sessions with IBM just to ensure that you are aware of the courses that we have on Zindi, that we are collaborating with IBM. And the good thing is you're able to get badges for the courses you take up. And this gives you a high advantage as you look for job opportunities in this volatile market. So I won't dwell much about IBM because we have an expert who is here today, Chanel, who will talk to us about IBM SkillsBuild and even walk us through um, a practical way of how to engage with the platform and also take up the skills. And we also will be starting our session. Um, we'll be starting our session in a few, but I would really highly request you guys to just put on the chat where you're joining us from so that we can welcome you all. I'm currently from Kenya. My name is Rose Delilah. I'm the community manager at Zindi, and I'm happy to be having you all here. Yeah, so without further ado, I would like to invite our first speaker for this session, Essa Mohammedali, who will give us an intro about what he does, what he's passionate about, and a fun fact about him. And then he can walk us through today's session where we talk about AI fundamentals and get to learn more from him. To you, Essa.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I don't know about the fun fact side of things. That was just sprung upon me. I'm sure I can come up with something. So my name is Essa. I am based in Tanzania, largely looking at the bridge between technical and non-technical AI. And we're just going to cover a few things, some of the work that we've done here in Tanzania, some of the applications that we've built. We might go a bit more into like an AI quick start guide, depending on how everyone here is feeling, what the level of comfort with the topic is. So maybe we can start there. If I'd like these sessions to be interactive, I know it is virtual, but I have two monitors. So that means I can still see everyone while looking at my presentation as well. So before I start sharing my screen, can I get a sense of how everyone feels about their understanding of AI? If you feel you have a good understanding of AI, just put an emoji like a thumbs up or a happy face or something like that, so I can get a sense of where we all stand. You can put in the chat or you can use the reacts buttons. Okay, we have a few. So that means I might just fast forward on the beginning of my presentation because it is a little bit geared towards those that are on the non-technical side to kind of get them up to speed on what is this we're talking about, why do we care, that kind of thing. Some house rules. Feel free to stop me at any time. If you have a question, raise your hand. Use the Zoom thing to raise your hand. If you don't want to say a question out loud because we are a smaller group, that's fine. You can just put it in the chat. I will also be monitoring the chat so we can have the conversation. But otherwise, it would be great to have this as interactive as we can and make it more of a conversation. So I'm going to share my screen and then you can just tell me if you can see my screen. Can I get some confirmation? Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes, we
Awesome.
can.
Perfect. Okay, so let's start with the organization I'm from, the Tanzania AI community. It's essentially a nonprofit organization that is looking at enabling the AI ecosystem. What this means is you want to do AI, we try to make it as possible for you to do AI. That's essentially it. Now, this can be in the form of supporting government with developing policy so that the enabling environment exists, the regulations exist to allow you to build this. But this can be in the form of capacity building and training, where we would guide you towards tools and products where you can upskill yourself, such as IBM SkillsBuild, which is actually a program that I've taken myself back in the day when it still used to be called the Digital Nation Africa, I believe is what it used to be called. And if you go onto my LinkedIn, you can still see the badges and stuff there. So, and it's a wonderful course with wonderful tools there. So I'm excited that we'll be able to learn more about it after this. So that's the capacity building. But then, of course, building actual products and solutions that are impactful, that are solving real problems, that are sustainable and scalable. And that is a significant part of this conversation, that we want to build tools and products and systems that are able to scale and not just end up being something in our GitHub or in our Jupyter notebooks. It needs to go beyond that. And that's what the Tanzania AI community does, focused in Tanzania, of course. What it looks like right now, we're over 600 members across the country. Others from other countries. We have some people from Kenya as well, part of the community. We welcome everyone. Just note that if you are part of the Tanzania AI community, most of the information will probably be focused on Tanzania events that are happening locally and such, but we welcome everyone. We even have people from Japan, South Africa, the US, but large majority Tanzanians, young people between the ages of 19 and 29. Most are students, most say they're interested in technical skills. What we do, empower those who are interested with the relevant resources, skills, and networks to create social impact. We are a nonprofit organization, so our focus is the impact. So moving on from there, I'll quickly jump through these things just to make sure we're on the same page. When we talk about AI, it's always received this powerful connotation that, especially these days, back in the day, it used to be the Terminator, it used to be HAL 9000, for those who remember that era of movies and shows. These days, everyone's talking about ChatGPT, Llama, DeepSeek. How are we being affected by these language models? How is it going to affect jobs? How is it going to affect people becoming lazy? That's a common conversation that we have these days. But the essence is it's very evocative in nature. It causes a lot of feelings. It causes a lot of conversations to be had. And while these conversations are important, it is also important to understand what was it intended to mean. What was the intention when these terminologies came into place, when this field of study really started picking up pace? And when in doubt, go to the dictionary. A lot of the problem with artificial intelligence is, can I hide this slide? Thanks. Okay, some of my graphics may not work because I moved this from a PowerPoint to Canva. Anyways, so a part of the problem with intelligence or with artificial intelligence is artificial is well enough understood, not of natural occurrence. But intelligence is an ongoing field of study within neuroscience, within psychology, within different fields. We are trying to understand intelligence. But what we know for sure is that intelligence does for sure contain certain components, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision making, and translation between different languages. So if we were to create an intelligence, then it would have to demonstrate these characteristics or these abilities. And how can we do that? And that's the field of study. That's what we're exploring, building these different forms of intelligence. And there were different approaches that were taken in the past and approaches that are being taken right now. And that foundation has been based in mathematics, statistics, and probability. And that's why there was always the discussion of, if you want to get into AI, you have to study math. A lot of people who got into AI were in some form of physics or statistics or the like. This was in the early days. And now it has started to abstract to a point that you don't need to know the math if you're building surface level products or projects. But the deeper you get into it, the more you want to customize your solutions, the more you need to know your mathematics. And in some ways, that can be a very interesting philosophical thought. Does that mean that human nature can be defined by mathematical equations? Maybe. Can life be defined by mathematics? Maybe. Some portions of it we're able to explore. So that's in the field of artificial intelligence. This slide's a little messed up, but I think we can see some of the pieces behind it. And essentially, it's common tools that we've been exploring or using in our day-to-day life that are already powered by some form of artificial intelligence. Autocorrect keyboards, we have Tesla and self-driving cars, Sophia. I haven't heard of Sophia in a little bit, but Sophia was also a big thing. Fun fact about Sophia, if I remember correctly, part of her intelligence systems was originally built in Ethiopia. So we do have some African heritage in AI as well. But something interesting is that, of course, this is a little oversimplified, but a core foundation of artificial intelligence can be seen in something as simple as the equation of a line. For those who were mathematics students or PCM students, we remember, or sometimes physics students as well, we remember having to calculate the equation of a line. Y is equal to mx plus c, or a is equal to bx plus c. And part of what we were doing in that process was a form of machine learning, except we were doing the work in that case. And essentially, by being able to plot points that we were given, also known as data points, we were able to draw a line that briefly told us the relationship between the points and our variables, your x-axis and your y-axis. And using that information, we are then able to predict a future point based on a particular variable. And at the end, that gives us something that might happen, a future outcome, which we would then use for some other way. And in its simplest form, of course, a little oversimplified, but that is a form of intelligence because we're using past data to predict a future occurrence, a form of pattern recognition. And that, in of its essence, is the direction that a lot of AI development has taken, finding specific aspects of intelligence and being able to present those forms of intelligence. Computer vision, natural language processing, machine learning, taking specific parts and creating. And then as the field expanded, we found ways to combine these forms of intelligence, where now we're able to do multiple things at the same time. Will we reach a point where we can combine all of these into a general intelligence, artificial general intelligence? Perhaps. Right now, a lot of indications are that it's going to be coming in the next, some people are saying 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. But when we're able to present all of these in a single developed system, let's call it, is going to be some form of general intelligence. But for the time being, we have specific intelligence system, or what we call artificial specific intelligence or artificial narrow intelligence. Now, this might not be new for a lot of you here. Maybe it's new for some of you here. So again, if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. Very quickly, why is everyone talking about it? A lot more data has come out. It's a lot easier and cheaper to compute a lot of this data that now exists on the internet. If you've read a bit about how ChatGPT has been trained or other language models have been trained, it's a lot of compute and a lot of data. Compute has become cheaper comparative to the ability it can to process, and data is increasing exponentially. I'll skip this, maybe a little bit here. And that is in terms of how is this different from traditional programming? Typically in traditional programming, us as the programmers define the input, the data that's going in. We define the rules, the program, the actions to be taken. The computer does the necessary computation or the calculations, and it gives us the results. With machine learning, we're trying to flip that process. We might not have the specific defined rules or program. So what if we are able to give the input data, our desired result or desired output on what it would look like after that data has been computed, and use that to find the set of rules, also known as the relationship, that tells us the computation required or the set of steps required to go from input to results. And then we take that program and implement it into an existing product or solution. Again, for some of you, this might not be new at all. This is just a quick refresher so that we're kind of on the same page. I'll skip some of this. A quick look at some of the focuses. Typically, the types of questions we're answering are either some form of prediction or some form of detection. And some could argue that now we have generation. So we're generating a output instead of just predicting or detecting. Others may argue that the way generation happens is a form of prediction. We can cut the cake in different ways, but essentially prediction and detection are the classic ways before we started having a lot more conversations about generative AI. Okay, now I'm gonna pause there in case there are any questions. So does anyone have any questions? Just raise your hand before I get into some case studies. If we're good, just give me a thumbs up.
I think we're good. I can see any hand raised. Yeah.
Okay, I'm seeing a good number of thumbs up. Awesome. So some case studies on some of the work we've done as the Tanzania AI community. There are reports about a lot of the work going on in Tanzania, and I'm happy to share that as well. But for the context of this conversation, we're just going to talk a bit about the case studies that we've done. So because we are a nonprofit and an impact organization, we largely focus in the impact sectors, healthcare and education being the major ones. So one of the projects we did was called Idea Lab, and you can find a report of this publicly available. Idea Lab explored how can we work with grassroots communities. And when we say grassroots communities, we mean the people facing the problem that we're trying to solve. In this case, it was health and well-being practitioners, doctors, pharmacists, community health workers, mental health practitioners. Those were the problem owners. How can we work with them directly to build solutions? We wanted to build a framework on collaboration between technical and non-technical actors. And how do we bring them together to ensure an end-to-end involvement of all relevant stakeholders? This was a project under a larger organization called the AI Commons. You've heard of the Creative Commons, similar concept, but for artificial intelligence. Open solutions, open source, documentation, everything. So we brought together the different stakeholders. I think we reached close to 60 different stakeholders within the health and well-being space. This was doctors, this was health practitioners, students as well. And to identify different problem areas. We mapped out, I think, about 15 different problem areas. And there was a Canvas tool to support this, which is also open source. To document the problems and to identify which of these problems could potentially be solved by AI. And by that, we would look at what's the data available, what are the tools required, how would you measure success to say that this solution is solving the problem? We took those, documented all of it, created something that if you as a developer saw, you would get an idea of what kind of solution you needed to build. We then took it to developers and we were like, pick a problem. We'll match you with an expert so you can talk to them. But there's also this rich documentation that you can get into. And that's what we did. Out of it, we came with different solutions from different teams, some looking at mental health support, some looking at cancer diagnostics, some looking at digitizing of hard copy data, others looking at diagnosis of pulmonary TB. If any doctors in the room, I'm sorry, I haven't said those words in a long time. TB, tuberculosis. So that's what we were looking at. Out of it, we documented all of these. Some of the prototype solutions were built out, and the documentation for that exists as well. It's online, it's publicly available. And one of them actually became a startup that is currently getting investment at its early stage. So that was Idea Lab. Second one was the use of language models. This came after the explosion of language models. And this looked at how can we build a tool over WhatsApp that is able to support community health workers in management of childhood illness protocol. For those who aren't in the health space, essentially, there's a set of rules and steps in place for a community health worker to treat a child. Because in rural settings, there might not always be a doctor, but there will be a community health worker who is able to support. So there's a set of steps and rules to essentially that defines or outlines the most common illnesses that a child is likely to face and the treatment possibilities for that. This digitized that because that's essentially a piece of paper. Digitized that, made it accessible over WhatsApp because the argument was we don't want any new apps, we don't want any new websites, we want a tool that is easily accessible, that the people are already used to, and make that available through there. And for the proof of concept, we essentially connected it to Google Scholar so that in the situation that whatever treatment directive has been given cannot be followed, the health worker can ask a question and say, I don't have this medication. What should I do? And it's able to go to Google Scholar, look at peer-reviewed papers and say, based on this paper, here's an alternative. So it would give the citation, it would give a short summary, and at the end, please consult with an actual health professional because, of course, this was a proof of concept prototype. We then tested it with about 60 community health workers in rural, urban, and peri-urban areas to get feedback on it. And now we're looking at continuing to refine this and scale it up. Also completely open source. So if anyone wants to continue building on this, use it for their own purposes, completely open source. We are updating the repository for this at the moment. So you might not find the full source code, but we are hoping to make that available in the next 2 months, give or take. So we are completely documenting everything so that it's as easy as possible for you to replicate it. The last case study I'm going to talk about, very similar in concept, Twiga, supporting Tanzanian teachers in developing assessment questions. For now, very narrow focus, just supporting in developing assessment questions based on the Nectar curriculum. So the Nectar curriculum is Tanzania's local curriculum that is implemented in schools that fall under the local education system. So again, WhatsApp, simple, focused, ask a question, it generates a response. Testing it with teachers in public schools, and it's largely meant to be a tool to support those who are doing important work. And that's what we're interested in, building tools that support and augment the skills of people in impactful sectors, agriculture, healthcare, education. How can we build something that is open, is replicable, is scalable, can be sustainable, but still solves an important problem, but builds a foundation that allows different things to be built on top? If you decide to look at Twiga and say that it should have a feature that allows a teacher to build a lesson plan based on the topic they're going to teach. You're welcome to do so. Fully open source on our GitHub. This one fully exists. It is under active development. There is a Discord that is active. We are looking at working with the Ministry of Education to implement this across the country and across other countries as well. So if you want to take it, work on it, copy the repository, go ahead. And that's the kind of work that we advocate for, that we're passionate about. That's not to say you shouldn't make money where you can. Build sustainability as part of the systems you're going to build. Sustainability can be in terms of documentation, can be in terms of the code you're writing, can be in terms of making a revenue model so that it can stand on its own and it doesn't have to be grants dependent. And that's how we can build tools that are impactful beyond us. Because you and I can build a solution in our repository, can show it off, can test it with one or two people. But how do we make it impactful and powerful beyond us? That another country can say, I like that, I want to use it. A group of students from across the continent can say, we want to support building that. And as we look at building your skills, as we work on that journey, it's one of the core areas that is being advocated for. Communication on the technologies you're building, the tools you're using. And it's going to be very exciting to see some of the work you're coming up. Finally, over time, a lot of development has happened. That means there are different ways we're able to build. There was a time when the only way to build these tools was pure coding. Now we've reached the point where you can build tools by using other tools like ChatGPT. You can repurpose existing language models. There's the large language models, but there's also small language models by the likes of Masakane and Lelapa AI that are building small African-based language models or even large African language models that are open source. So you repurpose existing tools. And then there's a third dimension, which is drag and drop, where you can use tools like Orange data mining, which is completely open source, to build your own products without having to know a single line of code. And that's a very nice transition into IBM SkillsBuild and IBM Watson. I've personally done courses and have a level of familiarity with Watson. And it's an interesting tool that can help you get started with your journey in AI development without necessarily having to go fully into the minute details of the code. Of course, you can if you want to, and the IBM team will, I'm sure, give us a lot more detail because I took the course like 4 years ago, so I'm sure a lot of things have changed since then. But there are these different directions of development, which means that if you want to start, you don't have to wait until you know how to code every single line. You can start today, and you should start today. And perhaps one of the best ways to start today is through IBM SkillsBuild. And I think that's a nice little segue into the next presentation. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Essa, for sharing that amazing presentation and the amazing work you do at Tanzania AI Lab. Are there any questions that you might have for our speaker before we jump into the IBM session? Any questions on the chat, or if you have a question that you'd want to unmute, you can raise your hand. I think, Essa, maybe you can stay till the end. Maybe we can combine the questions between IBM and the presentation you had once you have more context on what the AI Fundamentals course has in store. Thank you. So without further ado, I would like to check if Chanel is still around. I know he had some technical issues. Chanel, mic check. Okay, I think he's not. Yeah, I'll just check on the back end to see what's happening with his side. I think we have a question as we wait for him to rejoin. So there's a question from Deborah. What advice would you give to
That
aspiring
is a
AI?
very interesting question.
Yeah.
So I'm going, sorry, that's a very interesting question. So I'm going to jump right to it because, so maybe this is controversial, but I would argue that no, you don't need to know code, but you do need to know the life cycle of developing an AI solution. And when I say that, I mean going from identifying the problem to deploying it in an end solution that is being used by multiple people and allowing the system to iterate. The reason I say this is because there are nuances, there are steps in between that we might not think of unless we've lived through that process. I remember when I was getting into AI at the beginning, I was largely on the non-technical side. And in all honesty, till today, I am mostly on the non-technical side. But over time, I explored a lot more of the technical, and also how I ended up getting into the IBM training. Um, because I was like, okay, I'm representing a community of practitioners. And at that point in time, it was before a lot of countries were discussing policy. But I was still representing a community of practitioners. So I was like, I need to understand the pains that the practitioners go through, that the developers go through. It's easy to say the Bureau of Statistics has the data. The data should be made available as a policy requirement. But then when we get into the nuances of developing it, it's like, okay, the data should be available, but how is the data structured? And that's part of the nuances that when we start building is when we realize the frustrations of the structuring of data. Or our data should be private. Okay. Can we do data processing locally? It'd be like, oh, we have supercomputers in the country. We can do it. But maybe a nuance is that the type of data that we're processing requires not HPCs, but requires GPU clusters. We have GPU clusters. Or we're building here's a common one that everyone's talking about right now. We're building an AI sandbox, which is important. We need to be able to test our solutions. But if we're building an AI sandbox and we want people to test their solutions in the sandbox, do we have the technical requirement for them to be able to test their solutions in the sandboxes? So while I would say that it's not necessary to learning the code, learning how to code an AI solution, it is important to know the life cycle in building and deploying an AI solution. And sometimes that can only be learned through the code, but other times it can be learned just working with drag and drop platforms that allow you to build something small, even if it's something well documented. Follow a YouTube tutorial or a very common data set. Zindi has a lot of data sets available and tutorials and programs that they can show you to get started. So I think that can be a very good way to understand the developer side of things, the builders side of things, the product owner side of things, and help you transition into building policy that is creating that enabling environment while also keeping the targets users safe and the solutions responsible.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Essa, for sharing those amazing insights. I think we'll take this other question at the end of the session so that yeah, we can get to the IBM section. I think Chanel has been able to join. So hi, Chanel, can you hear me? You can unmute. Let me give you co-host try it. Hello, can you hear me?
Hi there. Thanks, Rose. I can unmute now.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you
Thank you
so
so
much for
much.
joining us. Yeah, I'll
Yes,
hand
thanks. It's
over
great to
the
be
call to
here.
you.
So I'll just share my screen, and I'm really excited to be talking a little bit about the wonderful offerings with the focus on AI that we've got today. Just give me one moment. I'll share, and then please let me know if you can see.
Yes.
Thanks very much. So, greetings, everyone. My name is Chanel Adams from IBM SkillsBuild. I am in the role of DSM, which is Digital Success Manager for the IBM SkillsBuild platform. And my role involves technical support for the platform for our partners. And so I'm really excited to be here with Zindi's learners once again, just to give you a little bit more insight. And I encourage you to please interact in the chat, interact with reactions as well. I'll be pausing along just to take some questions. But yes, let me dive right in. So IBM, we are part of corporate social responsibility, and it is our mission to upskill 30 million people globally by the year 2030, as well as in addition to that, 2 million people upskilled in AI by 2026. Right. This slide refers to AI in jobs, augmenting roles as opposed to replacing us as human beings. And I'm sure you would know there is a lot of speculation as well as fear induced by the topic of AI and how exactly that fits into our modern day. And as you can see here, 39% of workers, as per this study linked at the bottom of this page, and I will be sharing it as well, but 39% of workers' existing skill sets will be transformed or become outdated by the period 2025 to 2030, or 2030, pardon me, as well as 80%, 87% of executives expect jobs to be augmented rather than replaced by AI. And so our focus is to upskill both from a social and technical aspect. And yeah, I'll be telling you a little bit more about this learning, what it entails, as well as the credentials associated with it. So CSR, the CSR means that this offering is an opportunity that is free and will empower you with the very much needed skill sets, as you can see by the trend. So IBM Skills Build is a free learning online platform targeting both high school learners, academia, as well as adult learners. And then we are offering what is I would describe as a holistic approach, encompassing not just technical skills but also very much needed soft skills as well. And so, in addition to the skills that you see listed, there is also a focus on the ethics of AI, and as well as things like project management. A little bit about our footprint, our offering, our footprint. So, as I've mentioned, we are part of CSR, and so this offering is free, encompassing over 1,000 courses, right? And our translation offerings as well. We are currently at 20 languages. We offer, as I mentioned, we offer both technical training, personalized learning plans, more soft skills based learning, as well as these attached digital credentials. So before I get into the content, I'll just stop there and see if I have any questions.
I think it's mostly a comment, but we can
Yes,
follow up with it. Yeah.
thank you, Nate. Yes, definitely, definitely. That's what I was saying. Augmentation is the way forward and not complete replacement. I would agree. So, and so our content. One second. Right. So, as I mentioned, a more holistic approach to learning, right, and skills-based learning. Our focus is not on the tools that we use, in our jobs, but more on the skills that are very needed and that this encompasses, right? So we've definitely got, domain-based knowledge, skill-based or tool-based skills. They are important. However, we also have career management skills, employability skills that are just as important, guiding your career in AI, in tech. And what makes us different as well are the real world scenarios, the case studies, and yeah, these will give you a great insight into what is really out there and the real applications of this of these skills and this technology. Under employability skills, you can see highlighted are a few: communication, teamwork, and problem solving, which, it's great to have technical skills, but if you can't work as part of a team effectively, um, I'm afraid you're going to have a bit of a hard time. And so this is where we come in. And yeah, we encourage an all-encompassing learning journey for you. So, what are digital credentials? So, digital credentials are directly attached to the skills you'll be learning, and they are verifiable ways of showcasing your achievements and what you have learned. And, many other completion certificates are just that, they are just completion certificates. However, these are yours to have, and in future employers are able to click your credential and see the attached skills, which is very useful for building up your career. And yeah, it's mentioned they are verifiable, traceable, tamper proof, as I'm sure many of you know. Today, we'll be having a look at AI fundamentals, a very, very interesting credential. And Zindi has selected, I'm sure you would know, as part of the first group of offerings, artificial intelligence, which is our focus today, but also some soft skills as well, working in a digital world, professional skills, as well as job application essentials. And so a little bit more about artificial intelligence fundamentals, the credential. So it encompasses quite a few skills. The key skills being artificial intelligence, deep learning, NLP, as you know, which is natural language processing. These skills will be, honed in on by the end of your completion, and I believe it really is of great value. Um, I'll just name, some of the courses that fall under this credential: Introduction to Artificial Intelligence, Natural Language Processing and Computer Vision, Machine Learning and Deep Learning. And then you will learn how to run AI models within IBM Watson Studio, which is very, very interesting as well. And then the other side of it would be AI ethics. And as you know, such a powerful tool can be used for great good, but as well, it could be used in a way that is possibly damaging, invasive. Um, and so AI ethics, comprises of the guidelines and just the best practices going forward when it comes to the use of AI. And then your future in AI, the job landscape, which was touched on. You see the trend that the market is heading on, and yes, that is basically what is covered. Um, let's see. I'll move on to the next slide. And so now comes the exciting part, which is how will we access this learning? And if Rosie, if you could confirm, do the learners have their devices in front of them or nearby?
Uh, I believe they can have access. I've just shared a link on the chat for the courses, so they'll just follow through, or we'll share the recording after if they don't have the laptop.
Great, thank you. I'm sure you're comfortable with accessing the learning, so I won't drag it along too much, but we can go through together. And so you'll access the learning via zindi.africa/courses. And two things to note: please ensure that the IBM SkillsBuild checkbox is ticked, and just have a look for the artificial intelligence course. And yeah, you can click first register with IBM SkillsBuild, and then start module. And I'll be taking you through the registration process very, very quickly for those who have not yet registered. Uh, the process is twofold for those who have a Gmail or signed up with Google versus those who are not using a Gmail. If you are, the process is fairly simple. You'll click sign up with Google and then sign in with your email and password. And if you are not using a Gmail, you will click sign up and fill in your details. And then in your inbox, you'll receive the confirmation code just to verify your account. And then following that, you'll enter your basic information, some optional information, and then please check the terms and conditions as well. This is part of the create profile step, and there are just a couple more steps. You'll see an areas of interest page where you can just select those that interest you, and then at the bottom some notification and contact preferences that you can click the ones that you prefer for notification and communications. For today, I will skip the tutorial and I'll move on. And just let me actually just pause there for a second. If you have been following along, if you need me to repeat or go back to any steps, please let me know. And if not, we'll proceed. Yes, please go ahead, Mosey.
Hi,
Hi there.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
I
All right,
can.
cool.
I'll turn you up a little bit.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of missed the step on signing up. I'm not sure where you signed up. Was this on IBM's official website or on Zindi? 'Cause-
Thanks, Mosey. So I think very firstly, you'll need to access zindi.africa/courses. The link is in the chat. That's your starting point. And then I'm happy to take us back just for that initial step. Right, we're here on this page, and I'm keeping my eye on the chat as well. Thank you very much. The link is in the chat. Um, yeah, so you've got your Zindi profile, and now you'd like to access today's focus, which is the AI Fundamentals course. And so on zindi.africa/courses, when you check IBM SkillsBuild on the left, you'll be able to see our offerings. And today we're signing up with Artificial Intelligence Fundamentals, right? You can click first register with IBM SkillsBuild and then start module, right? So it will take you to the landing page, which is the IBM SkillsBuild platform. And please let us know in the chat so far if you are able to follow along. Thanks, Mosey. So I will continue. And so you will then land on the landing page for the learning, right, on IBM SkillsBuild, and you're able to click enroll. And if you look at the bottom, there is an activity called Earn It, Accept It, Share It on IBM SkillsBuild. And Rose, would it be possible for me to share that video? Would it be okay? Would I be able to play it?
Yeah, you can play it and select the checkbox that says sound, computer sound, I think, on Zoom.
Thank you so much. Let me just open that. And we can watch this video together, and then we will mark it as complete afterwards. So I'm just going to put this up. So share. Please let me know if you can hear the sound or not.
Earn it, accept it, share it. Completing this learning experience earns you a digital credential. Digital credentials are verifiable and portable records of your achievement that you own and manage. They showcase your achieved learning outcomes, skills, and accomplishments. Each digital credential contains verifiable information that proves you have earned them by completing the required criteria, much like a diploma certifies that you have completed an educational program. Potential employers or schools you're applying to can view your earned digital credentials to assess your qualifications. Whether it's a specialized skill or subject expertise, you can stand out amongst your peers. To manage and share your earned digital credentials, you must first accept them. After successfully completing a learning experience, you'll receive an email from Credly. Select Accept Your Badge in the email. You'll be redirected to Credly's website. If you haven't created a Credly account yet, now's the time to do so. Select the Accept Badge button to add it to your digital wallet. Now you can share your badge across social platforms. When you share your credentials with schools, employers, and the world, you're letting them know that you have current knowledge and skills that are certified by a respected, credible source. Don't miss out. Be sure to accept and share your earned digital credential as soon as you receive your course completion email. It's easy to do.
Thanks everyone for completing that with us all together. I would ask that you mark that activity as complete. That is your first activity under the course if you have not already. So on the page for the video, please mark it as complete, and then you can return to the plan and have a look at some of the other learnings which are displayed here. And please, you can still see my screen, I believe. Yes. Yeah, so we've got, these are the courses that comprise the artificial intelligence fundamentals, an introduction to AI, the natural language processing, as I've mentioned, machine learning and deep learning grouped into one. And as I mentioned, using Watson Studio to run your models and learning more about that. The entire course is about 10 hours, more or less. AI ethics, as I mentioned, and then your future in AI, the job landscape. And then I would like to just take you back to Zindi.Africa, the courses. Make sure that you go back to Zindi, the Zindi platform, and mark your register on IBM SkillsBuild. Mark that as complete, right? And ensure to use the progress tracker. And as mentioned in the video, you will receive an email upon completion of all the required learning activities within the course, and you will be mailed with your credential, and that will be put into your credential wallet. This is just a quick guide, and maybe I'll just pause there that we're all clear. And I know it's a lot of information, but I think you've kept up well. And if I have any questions at this point, please.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Please feel free. The same email address for your Zindi, for your Credly account. I'll leave you with a quote from a Nigerian data analyst and IBM SkillsBuild learner, and that is, IBM SkillsBuild opened me up to previously unavailable opportunities as it taught me something new, which I couldn't have learned at school, and ultimately improving my employability. And that speaks to, once again, an all-encompassing learning path that is not just technical, but also comprises of the soft skills, creating a CV, putting yourself out there in the most effective way. Thank you very much. That has been, just a little bit of insight about who we are at IBM SkillsBuild and the learnings that we have on offer, and just our content strategy, our approach to the learning. And I hope it's been informative, and it's just been great to be here and to speak with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Shanil, for walking us through the IBM platform and just taking us through the course that we'll be looking at in AI fundamentals. So does anyone have a question based on how to access the course? I think it's definitely a very nice course. As Essa mentioned, he has also been part of the SkillsBuild when it was earlier on launched. So it's a good experience and feedback shared. So does anyone have a question for Shanil on the platform? Maybe something you're curious about, or maybe a challenge you have faced trying to access the course? Okay. And in case of any challenges, Chanel, how can they be able to reach out as we do the course?
I would advise mailing yourself, probably, Rose, as a point of contact, unless there is someone else. I may be mistaken on that.
Okay.
And then,
Okay.
you can definitely contact me, and I will guide anyone who is struggling.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think George is saying the Credly link takes him to a place without creating an account. Yeah.
Okay, George, double check if you perhaps don't have a Credly account created already. If so, we will double check and get you the correct link, and possibly there is something to be changed there. Thank you for that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chanel, for the presentation and for sharing more. I look forward to seeing most of our community here take part in one of the courses, especially the AI fundamentals. Okay, so there's a question on, for someone pursuing cybersecurity, can one advancing in AI make them stand out?
That's a very good question, Brian. Cybersecurity, I definitely believe that having this credential, fundamentals of AI would not hurt your pursuits and your desire to pursue cybersecurity. I don't know the future of cybersecurity and how augmented it will be with AI. It's a very touchy subject. However, I do not think that there's any harm in acquiring such a useful skill.
Thank you, Chanel.
One from Sfiso. So, upon completing all the learning, you will be mailed a link to accept your digital credential, and that can take up to a week. However, when you receive it, you'll be able to get the badge, and it is much more than a completion certificate, because when a future employer clicks on your digital credential, they will see a list of skills attached to that digital credential, and it's not just a completion. And so that is the differentiation between the completion certificate and this credential that is on offer. I hope does that answer your question? And I think just to add, as far as the CV goes, I would recommend a one pager with your CV details, as well as the badge, the credential badge. Put that on there. Be proud of it, as well as sharing it. On social media as well. Share and tell friends about this credential. Thank you for that question, Sviso.
Cool. Any more questions before we wrap up? I think there was one question for Essa. Thank you so much, Chanel, for the presentation. I think if any question comes up, we'll direct it to you on the same. But thank you for sharing the presentation. I think Kutso has his hand up. Maybe we can take his question and then I hand it over to Essa to answer one question that we postponed.
Yes. Please go ahead, Kutso.
I wanted to ask from Zindi point of view. There was one course that I've completed, but in terms of the Zindi points, how do we get them and how long do they take?
Oh, the Zindi points. Rose possibly could. Do you have any insight on that?
I think once it's completed, you'll be able to get your points awarded.
Yeah. The reason why I'm asking is I've completed one and I've linked my my badge, but the points were never allocated to me.
Okay, we'll check with the team to see if there's maybe some delay, but it should, yeah. We'll follow up with that code. So thank you for raising.
Great. Thanks so much, Rose.
Okay, so there's a question from Dorothy. I think it can go to the speakers. As we follow up on the previous question, is AI lowering barriers for creating new challenges? Is the question clear, or Dorothy, would you want to unmute and maybe ask it directly? Dorothy?
Hi, Delilah. My question is based on entrepreneurship, whereby I'm trying to ask whether it will lower the barriers for maybe creating the new challenges, the new innovations that are coming up.
There is no better time to be an entrepreneur. The level of ease of prototyping has never been easier. From going on to Canva, asking Canva to help you design a website, taking the design, going to Claude or Chat or anything, asking it to build you the code base. You can directly deploy the code base onto GitHub. You can get it hosted directly. Within a couple of days, you have a functioning prototype. The barrier of entry has never been lower for being an entrepreneur, for building, especially a prototype. And that part is key. Building an end-to-end solution still requires a lot of work. Building a prototype to show the idea that you have in something that you can actually use, it has never been easier, and it will only get better. But on the other hand, that means the barrier of entry for a competitor has also lowered. They can look at your platform, screenshot it, go on to some of these platforms and get it built immediately as well. So for you to build a solution to solve a problem has become so much easier. And you should take advantage of that as an entrepreneur, because as I personally am an angel investor, I have invested in, for now, one company, soon to be 2 or 3 companies. So beginner angel investor, and been part of like angel investor networks and the innovation space and entrepreneurship space for the last couple of years. A lot of investors want to see a working technology. They want to see, do you have customers? Have you tested it? Do you have some level of product market fit? It's very rare to find an investor who's willing to fund an idea. So to take you from idea to proven concept has never been easier. And you should take as much advantage of that as you can.
Dorothy, I hope your question has been answered. I think there was another question on how do you think AI agents will change the way we live and work?
That is a tough question, because the reality is I don't know. The reality is that it will be up to the creativity of the people using the agents. There's this concept of the one-person company. Like in the past, we used to say that you can't be a one-man army, you can't be a one-woman army, you can't build a company yourself. You need co-founders, you need a team. We're reaching a point where if you have automations that are complex enough, that are display enough intelligence abilities that they can do most of the work that you would hire a team for, then theoretically we're getting to the point where you could have a business on your own. Again, theoretically, if we'll have to wait to see if people actually manage to do this. But there are a lot of people I know who are leveraging this to support their day-to-day activities as a business owner. As these agents get more powerful, as you're able to do more with them, I don't know what that future looks like. I say that future is defined by us, how we decide to use it, the new ideas and concepts that we're able to implement. That can be a world where we're all building products to support our local communities. That can be a future where we're all business owners. That could be a future where we automate so much of our day-to-day tasks that I don't even have to be at my computer to look like I'm working. I can be out riding my motorcycles and everyone thinks I'm here writing articles. But in the meantime, I've just automated that entire pipeline. I don't know what that future looks like. It's up to us to define how we can use these tools. Where do we draw the lines in the ethics and the responsibility of the solutions we're going to build? So that's why I say it's a difficult question to answer, because it will depend on how all of us here who are on this call and those who watch this later, those who get into the AI space, or maybe don't even, they just use the tools as tools. They'll define what this future looks like.
Nice. Those are amazing insights, and definitely something to look forward to as entrepreneurs, and just generally as we are building AI. Hopefully things will be more simple, and yeah, we get AI to work for us. Do we have any other question before we wrap up? I think we are out of time. Don't see any, but you can get our speakers LinkedIn. I think we'll share them after the session in the recording, but you can also just search on LinkedIn, Essa Mohammedali. I think also Chanel, you can get him through LinkedIn, but we'll follow up and send the recording after. Yes. So, okay, this has made the work easier here. But yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much to our speakers, Essa, Chanel, for joining this session. I think we have a lot of enthusiasm from all across Africa. As you can see, we have Kenya represented, Chad represented, South Africa represented. So we are really eager to be in this AI ecosystem at this moment. And we look forward to taking up the course and seeing what is available for us in our continent at the moment to upskill. Yeah, so thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this amazing discussion, and looking forward to you joining our next sessions as we continue to upskill. Please check Zindi for the courses, the different courses we have, and get yourself badges. We are going to check on the points matter so that you'll still get assigned points once you are done with your course. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you in more sessions. Thanks, everyone, and have a good evening. Thank you. Bye.